Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. So far, the market is looking pretty decent. Stocks are definitely on the uptrend. We have some commodities slowly trending down, like gold and oil. But, Tom, I would say overall, the market is setting up pretty good today. Futures are up a little bit. Like I said, commodities are down a little bit. Do you have any favorite setups or stocks you're watching heading into today? And then you're muted.
Yeah, I was really eyeing up that airline sector, Mike. We can see that American Airlines actually had a pretty nice pop up earlier this morning, and they're approaching that resistance of earlier from this week. So I definitely have them on the radar, along with Boeing, Mike. Boeing really broke out this morning. They're starting to move up in a pretty good way. And to be honest, I just love the way they're breaking out of the range from this week. Ever since they started passing above 183 this morning, they've had some pretty nice movement. So hopefully we see them continue to break out here now that the market opened.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking at my watch list right now. It looks like Roblox is one of the stocks leading the way. Roblox had a decent day yesterday, and it's up around 2.5% as of right now, which is good to see. It's just one of those stocks to have on your watch list because, just a couple months ago, Tom, this stock was trading for $141, and now it's at $42. So it's like, this thing got destroyed with a lot of other stocks. At the same time, it has been growing in a very crazy way. And, I guess you could say every couple of weeks or so, it seems like they've had a pretty big catalyst. I know that the other week with the Super Bowl and stuff, they had an NFL experience with Roblox. And then, they did something with Nike and Nike Land. And they even did some virtual concerts and stuff.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff. It's actually a pretty big, you could say virtual world now at this point. Roblox has been getting into a lot of different stuff. Like you mentioned, those deals with the NFL, I think are pretty big, Mike. And looking at their stock this morning, they're starting to really move up here at market open. They're now up 3.5%, continuing to climb up my watch list. And it looks like they're just moving above those pre-market highs. So hopefully we see a nice continuation out of this one. They're sitting right around that $43 resistance. So we might have some issues breaking out, but hopefully we see that momentum come in here.
Gotcha. So you're mainly watching 43 for resistance?
Yeah, 43 will be good, I think, for a nice intraday level today. But once we break 43, there's some bigger levels up here right around 44 that I see, Mike. And then above 44, all the way up here right at 45.75, there's also a pretty big resistance. And honestly, with the way it's moving, I would not be surprised if we ended up coming up to around 44 at some point.
All right, there we go. Looking at some other stocks this morning, it looks like Disney is actually also breaking out. It's up just under 2%, and it's having some pretty good movement, especially for Disney so far.
Yeah, I love this movement, Mike. It looks pretty bullish. Looks like a lot of the growth plays here today, and I'm glad to see them moving up in a similar fashion. Again, they ran right up towards this resistance around 136, and they're seeing some slight rejection there on the 1 minute chart here, but the market just opened. We could still have some more volatility, but yeah, it's nice to see Disney up. I know it's been a long time, Mike, since we've seen Disney go on a nice uptrend anyways. Of course, we keep running up to 155 and then moving right back down, but I'd love to see Disney hold on this support. I know that we've been bouncing around 130 a couple of times over the past few months, and I just really hope this is the bottom support, Mike, because we've been waiting for this for Disney for a long time. And whenever they reported those decent numbers with earnings there, I thought maybe they'd start to go back on the uptrend. But, I guess they're just going to lag around for a little while longer.
They were looking really good when they were at 130 a month ago. But then the whole Russia situation got a lot worse. Like you said, the earnings was actually it was good for Disney stock, but I just feel like the overall market sentiment kind of just dragged it down. Kind of like what happened with Google. Google reported good earnings. They announced their stock split. The stock was exploding, and then it just sold off. Same thing with Enphase, like you were just looking at. I feel like any stock that had good earnings lately, even if it ran up for the first couple days, it ended up giving it right back. And we even have another example, Square, SQ. Same exact thing happened to that one. Ran up on earnings and then, pulled back significantly.
Yeah, I can't believe that all those pullbacks have been happening like that. And talking about earnings, Mike, You know, we can't forget about last night. We had some pretty big EV companies report like Rivian, and they ended up tanking off to the downside all the way down to 34.50, Mike, at the lows. Looks like they are coming back up today. They might try to retest this $40 resistance, but man, I mean, this stock got destroyed, and I could not believe some of the numbers I was seeing with them. Like, they only produced 900 something vehicles for the whole fourth quarter, which, you know, that's pretty low compared to companies like Ford, GM, and Tesla. I know Rivian is not near as developed as those companies, but man, I mean, that's just such a low number. And then even their sales came in pretty low, Mike. So I was just really surprised to see this one come out with that bad of numbers. I know we saw Lucid have some bad numbers a couple of weeks ago, and they ended up falling on their earnings as well. So I guess Rivian could have been somewhat expected, but it just sucks to see these EV companies not getting to where they need to be. You know, I know that they've had a lot of production goals, and it just is it's not good to see them not you know, producing vehicles at an accelerated rate, I should say, because, you know, you look at like Ford and GM, and I don't know the exact numbers, but especially like with Tesla, I remember in the whole 2021 they produced like 300 something thousand vehicles. So for Rivian to only produce 1,200 in the total of last year is pretty crazy.
Yeah, wasn't it? I think it was 2,400. I'm pretty sure for the total 2021 year. I thought it was 2,400, and then Q4 was like 900 something. But either way, I know what you mean. You know,
yeah, I think Lucid might have been the 1,200 one then.
Okay, yes, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's been pretty tough for these new EV companies with especially production. And Tom, just like Elon said, like, I know he pulled up the tweet from Elon a couple times in the past, but Elon, like, when Rivian was going crazy, and same with Lucid, they're like, he was like, you know, like, yeah, that's awesome, but, you know, the true challenge will be to have consistent positive cash flow. And then he also said something about, like, a efficient manufacturing process, I believe. I'll have to pull up the tweet, but it just goes to show you that there's a lot more that goes into these EV companies besides the hype that it seemed like, you know, just a couple months ago, Tom, everyone was just jumping into these EV companies blindly.
Yeah, they did. And I actually pulled up a tweet from Elon Musk, Mike. He said, if it's possible to start an EV company without shipping any cars and getting a valuation less than $1 million, like,
yeah,
it's pretty funny to see him say that because, you know, as we know, Rivian came onto the market with $0 in sales. And at the time they were priced so high. I just couldn't believe it. But even Elon had to come out and tweet about it. It was so crazy.
I remember, like, every single day when Rivian IPO'd for, like, the first, like, week or something like that, I just kept saying on the stream every single day, the world's third largest auto manufacturer by market cap with 0 in sales. That was Rivian. Like, think about that. Their valuation was so crazy. They were the world's third largest auto manufacturer by market cap, and they produced, like, they had no sales. They were worth more than Ford, GM, I think Ferrari. Like, it's just like, it's like, what?
Yeah, that's insane. Like, for them to be the third largest automaker in the world and have 0 sales is just mind-blowing. I know they have some big backers like Ford and Amazon that own some of Rivian there, but it's still crazy to see how high it got. And, you know, I'm sure Rivian will be pretty popular in the future. You know, we did see last night, Mike, that they had like 83,000 pre-orders or something really close to that. So they do have a lot of things on order. It's just they need to up that production so they can start getting some cash flow in. Because, man, look at Tesla. Like, if we look at Tesla on like a max weekly chart, Mike, look at their EPS down here at the bottom. It took them a long time to finally get into the positives there. And it took, I don't know the exact date, Mike, but it was like all the way up until like the end of 2019, like the beginning of 2020, before they finally reported a positive quarter there.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. So expect volatility if you own some of these EV companies. And we're not trying to bash on like Rivian and Lucid. It's just like be prepared for volatility. You know, they're definitely in for a wild ride. But shifting over into some of the other plays this morning. Tom, I know you mentioned Boeing a little bit. That one is leading my watch list right now. It's up almost 3%, and it's trying to break out.
Yeah, it's really trying to here. It's sitting right at that resistance from this morning. This was actually my free day trade today. I had them if they popped above that pre-market high, I believe, of 183.50 to go ahead and play some calls to the upside. Looks like we did pop above that momentarily. Hopefully we end up holding this as a nice support, Mike. I know that Boeing's definitely consolidating right now, and it kind of broke out, but we didn't really get that move that we would love to see. So hopefully we see a nice continuation up out of Boeing. Even like American Airlines is looking, well, actually, Mike, they're actually not looking as good as I thought. They turned back over here at market open. They're now in the negative. So not looking the best now out of American, but I know Boeing's holding up a lot better than these other airlines, which is good, at least right now. But who knows? Even Boeing might get dragged down if the rest are starting to fall.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Then we have J Deep saying BABA. So let's take a look. BABA. And it's definitely taking a hit today. Almost at $90, Tom. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely selling off. Trying to see if there's any new news with this one. Not seeing anything new. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything new. But it's definitely struggling today.
Yeah, new yearly lows here. Definitely not good to see. All the way down to around $90. This continues to get these big moves down at market open, Mike. Like yesterday, the market open and BABA just straight up sold off. Same thing happened today. I'm wondering if investors are starting to get scared of these Chinese stocks, Mike. You know, I know people have been really worried about the Russian stocks lately, but I know that like these China stocks might have some risk to them as well. I know that everyone's talking about China possibly going into Taiwan now, and I don't think they'll do that, but in the end, I feel like it might be causing some selling pressure out of some of these plays. Like BABA just continues to fall down here on the daily chart. Same thing with JD. I know JD had those bad earnings yesterday, or at least the market perceived them as bad, and they ended up tanking off in a big way. So yeah, the China plays have a lot of volatility right now.
Yep. All right. What else do we have moving? Looks like BLNK, Tom, yesterday from their earnings release, it's down around 6% or so. You know, it's not like terrible, like in terms of like today's movement, but it's definitely not good. You know, it's like, I don't know. What do you think of this one? Like, I know they reported earnings, like their sales grew, which is good, but again, it's still a really low number. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the sales came in there at like 7-something million, and they were only expecting like 5.5 million or something like that. So for them to come in and beat sales was great, but like you said, it was just such a low number. Only $7 million in sales. Like, I know a lot of businesses around my house that do $7 million in sales, and these are just small businesses. So I don't know, how Blink is going to do over the next year. I know they have some nice deals like with GM where they're going to supply their North American dealerships with EV charging stations and stuff. So I think that'll be good for Blink over the next year. But looking at them right now, Mike, I personally just don't think it's setting up very well. You know, it tanked off yesterday. It tried to run up this morning, but it kind of got rejected, like right around that 24.30 resistance, you could say. We've had a lot of bounces around there the past few days, and I don't know. I could see this one going lower. You know, they ended up coming in worse than expected on that EPS there, worse to the downside. So that's definitely not good to see. You know, we came in at negative 0.45 versus a negative 0.39 estimate. So I could maybe see this one going even lower today. And I hate to say that because I was really hoping these charging station stocks would do better.
Yeah, how's ChargePoint?
ChargePoint, CHPT, hopefully they're holding up a little bit, but wow, they're holding up a lot better. They're only down 1%. I will say, though, the setup is not the best. They're definitely starting to turn over, kind of like what we're seeing with Blink today. But I will say they're definitely looking better than Blink down 6%. So I'll take down 1% out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have news coming in from Vicky saying, so according to the Financial Times, the SEC set the clock for delisting Chinese companies over U.S. audit demands. So shout out Vicky for that news, and that would definitely explain some of this selling pressure with the China stocks. You know, we have BABA down, LI down. I bet NEO is down. Yeah, NEO's down 3.5%. Like even like XPEV down, Baidu down, JD. Yeah, they're all down.
Wow, and they're all running down in a big way, Mike. Like I have the 15-minute chart pulled up here, and you can see that they just have huge red candles here at market open. It's insane to see how low these things are going. JD is about to break the low of yesterday. Like we talked about, BABA's at new yearly lows this morning. So it's insane to see how low they're going, and that's some pretty big news, Mike. I know the biggest fear with China stocks is getting delisted, and to have them talking about it now is pretty insane. So I could definitely understand why they're selling pressure. And Mike, we've been saying it for the past 6 months or so, is that is the risk that you have to take with these China plays. Is there is always that possibility of delistment, but in the end, you have to hope that the system stays in place that is currently there, and that hopefully our relationship with China stays steady. I know it hasn't been the best the past few years, but hopefully it just stays where it is and it doesn't get worse. And honestly, I just, like we talked about before, I really hope they don't try to do anything like we saw with Russia and Ukraine. Obviously, that would be like worst case scenario here.
Yep, we will see. So doing a quick scan of the market overall, looking at the SPY, Tom, it looks like it's just kind of holding up. It's not really doing too much. What are you thinking in terms of levels for the rest of the day?
I actually really like the way it's moving right here, Mike. We actually moved above 427 this morning. We broke out in a pretty big way, ran all the way up to 432. We did extend a little bit above that on the 1-minute candles there. And then we flew right back down and we just retested 427 again. So looks like we are seeing 427 posed as a big support today. I know 427 has been a big level all week with the SPY, and we've had a lot of trouble getting above that. So hopefully we see a nice bounce off of this and then we move back to the upside, Mike. I think that would make for some good trading. And as far as it's setting up, I think that's the setup I'm seeing. If we do start bouncing at 427, there has been a lot of bounces around 428 to 430 as well. So be careful of that. But as we start to go up today, Mike, I hope we see some continuation here, because pre-market movement was great. So I know lately the market's been doing the opposite of what happens in pre-market. So hopefully we don't tumble back down. And I will say this bounce looks pretty decent off 427. We're definitely moving back up off of here.
Awesome. How is the Qqq holding up relative to the SPY?
Ooh, it's actually not holding up the best in my opinion. It definitely started tanking off here at market open. Let's go back to the SPY really quick. Yeah, the SPY just slowly sold off in pre-market, and then at market open, it moved down a little bit, but not much by any means. But the QQQ had a pretty big extension to the downside at market open. We kind of retested those highs of yesterday right around 332. So it looks like on the QQQ, 332 is a big support. But I would say, Mike, these big tech plays are probably swinging to the downside now that I see the QQQ's down. And I went and looked at my watch list, and I'm seeing stocks like Twitter to the downside, Zoom's down, Lucid's down, even Tesla's in the negative by quite a bit today.
Are they? Let's see, TSLA. Yeah. I mean, they're definitely downtrending. They were gapping up just like an hour ago, and then they're kind of just giving it all back.
Yeah, they had that nice pre-market movement this morning, ran up and retested that resistance up there around 855, and then they're just really tumbling over here. It's just it sucks to see them fall off this much. If they would have consolidated somewhere up here at the top, I would think there might be a nice shot to still fly back up today, at least back up to pre-market highs. But with the way we're moving now, it's not looking too good in my opinion. And looking at it on the daily chart, Mike, Tesla has failed to break back above $900 7 times over the past few months. So it's not a good sign to see them getting rejected at this resistance again. And I have a bad feeling now that these other EVs are going down, we might see Tesla start to follow them to the downside. But I hope Tesla holds up somewhere soon. I know that there's a big support coming up around 810 down there.
Gotcha. All right. So I just did a scan for some momentum today, and it really looks like the main plays that are just moving in general are the China plays, and that's to the downside. So, stocks like BABA, JD, and Baidu are the main movers that I'm seeing so far today. So, a lot of them are getting towards intraday supports. We could see with JD, Tom, on the chart, it had a low of $5.60 yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised if, we see some type of support right around that level today. But, let's say we bounce off of $50.60 in maybe 20 minutes or so. And maybe it consolidates for an hour or so, and then sometimes we actually just see a slow fade throughout the rest of the day. So I guess what I'm trying to say is keep an eye on some of these China plays. As of right now, that's the only group of stocks with some true momentum, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're definitely having some nice extensions here. You know, they're definitely moving down in a big way. Like you said, they have a lot of momentum to the downside. So definitely keep them on the radar, Mike. And you know, I know that JD is a China play, and I know you mentioned earlier a few of those other ones like Neo. I just can't believe Neo just continues to move down this low. You know, they're in that EV sector. We saw Blink sell off last night, along with like ChargePoint and a few other stocks. So I really hope that Neo ends up moving back. But with them being in the China sector, it just seems like it's just hurting them time and time again. I know that over the past few months, Mike, they've been kind of falling off with Baba, and they just continue to go lower. I know that it's not just Neo though. We also have XPEV, which is another China EV play, also going down along with LI. So it's insane to see how much momentum is to the downside on these China plays, and you know that delistment risk is definitely scary. So yeah, this is definitely where the momentum is this morning, Mike. And there's a few other stocks moving down, like Peloton, for example, but it just doesn't have the momentum that the China plays have. Those plays are just getting kind of parabolic here, you could say.
Yep, I gotcha. On the bright side, we actually have Microsoft kind of breaking out right now as we speak. It just turned around and it's at its like high of day after, or never mind, it's the high of day is right around like 289.50 if you're not including pre-market. If you are including pre-market, then it looks to be right around 293, Tom, but I can't tell if that's a glitch because the wick.
Yeah, those wicks are always huge in pre-market. Sometimes, you know, I will say though, sometimes those wicks go up and then they'll like touch a resistance and they'll come back down. I don't know what that's worth, but in the end, you know, it's definitely interesting to see how sometimes those wicks extend up like that. Sometimes, Mike, we'll see some crazy stuff where the wick will sometimes go up like 10% and stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes there is those glitches, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see Microsoft coming back up. I wonder how Apple looks compare to Microsoft, but wow, Apple's really not looking as good, Mike. I know Microsoft's holding up a lot better today, and I know Boeing's starting to finally break out, so maybe we'll start to see the market move back up here. I know the SPY was bouncing off 427, so maybe that'll hold up if we start to see these stocks move, but you know, whenever I see Apple extending down like that, it doesn't give me too much hope, but hey, Nvidia's in the green, Disney's in the green, Amazon's in the green, so we're seeing some big stocks at least in the green, even though they were falling off at market open.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean with Apple, though, too. Like, yeah, it's awesome to see all these other plays moving up, but it is always just a slight concern when you see, like, some of these stocks that have such a large influence on, you know, the major indices and a lot of other stocks trending down, because sometimes that can be like, I guess you can say the writing on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, Apple's like the largest company in the world as far as market cap goes. So that's pretty big. Obviously, they're a big player. So that's going to be interesting to see how they end up playing out today. And you know, they had that nice pop in pre-market, and I was really hoping that they would do better today, but they just continue to extend lower. I wonder if there was like some bad news coming out of them, Mike. I wonder if maybe that China news might hurt Apple a little bit. I hope it doesn't, but I'm wondering if that might be what's going on. I'm not seeing anything come through the news on Thinkorswim, but you know, I know that Apple does a lot of business in China, so that was my main concern there.
All right. I just wanted to check in really quickly with like the chip stocks, specifically AMD and Nvidia. I know that over the past couple months, they've really been trending down, and it's kind of crazy to think about this, but AMD's at 106 right now, and just like literally like 2 or 3 months ago, AMD was at like 165. Like that's a pretty big swing. You know, it's been a crazy past couple months, but it looks like they're not doing too much today with AMD. Like it's in the green slightly, but Tom, what are you thinking with them?
Yeah, down to that low, from high to low, from 164 down to $100. We fell about, like, let's get it back up here. Fell about like 30, almost 40% there to the downside. So that's a pretty big drop out of a big company like AMD. You're definitely right. And as far as the movement today, it's starting to move back below 108. I had some support around 108. We're moving below that. We did kind of confirm off of it just a few minutes ago with that wick right back up and touching that. So that's a good thing to see there. I think we might continue to see a sell-off here with AMD today. And you know, I'm a pretty big I should say I'm biased towards AMD. I like these chip plays. I like AMD. I like Intel. I like Nvidia. I like all of them, to be honest. I think they'll all do fairly good for the longer term. It's just buying them at the right time is my main concern here. But with AMD today, they're falling down, Mike. They're good. They're going to be approaching a support at 106 pretty soon. We're about 50 cents off of that. If we start breaking through 106, I could possibly see AMD coming down to that low of yesterday around 104. Yesterday at market open, AMD really sold off all the way down to that 104 level. So I think we could definitely see that today if this selling pressure continues.
Very interesting. How is Nvidia doing?
They were doing a little bit better, but just like AMD, they're kind of turning over here at market open. They also are kind of confirming off of that resistance up there. They were sitting right around $230 at market open. They fell right below it. They over the past like 15, 20 minutes, they've retested that 229.50 to 230 area. Now they're coming right back down. Just like AMD, it looks like the selling pressure is starting to pick up here and the momentum's coming in. So we might see these stocks continue to sell off here, Mike. And just like I said with AMD, though, Nvidia is coming down into a support right around 226. So be a little mindful of that. But I will say the momentum's definitely here today to the downside, in my opinion.
All right, good to know. And then even George mentioned MU. He said MU is also on the way down back to 70. Yeah, it's like right at 73 right now, and it's been slowly downtrending to 70. Tom, just a couple weeks ago, this stock was in the upper, I guess you could say mid-90s, low to mid-90s, and now we're talking about it maybe going to the 70s.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, Mike, but back whenever it was in the 70s in like September and October, I remember I was a pretty big proponent of MU. I kept saying, man, MU's looking so good right now off these supports and stuff, and I ended up flying right up there. I played it a little bit to the upside, but I didn't get near as high as $98 there at the high. But, now that it's coming back down, I'm wondering where the next nice level will be to buy this one, because there's a lot of selling pressure right now. They have earnings coming up, looks like on March 29th. So that's going to be pretty big to look at the end of this month, Mike. And, I know MU's been a pretty big chip stock, and even Nancy Pelosi bought into MU, I believe. So looking at it, I can't believe it's continuing to fall off this low. And I'm definitely going to be eyeing it up for the longer term now that we're getting back to that $70 level. I think $70 will be pretty big for MU. That doesn't mean it's going to hold this, though. I will say there's a lot of downwards momentum. So we might end up breaking that to the downside. But I will say, as far as like starting to average in, I would definitely look at it right there.
All right, there we go. Yeah, it's been wild. But looking at some other plays really quickly, it looks like we're definitely seeing more selling pressure. At least I am this morning, than buying pressure. We have the China plays going down, but we even have some of these plays like Peloton and even Facebook trending lower by the minute. Facebook is down almost 4% today.
Man, poor Facebook. They just continue to take bad hits here to the downside. It's definitely not a good thing to see. And, it's not just Facebook. It's also Twitter going on here. They're also selling off along with Snapchat. So it seems like all these social media companies are having issues lately. And I know there's been a lot of things going on with DWAC and Truth Social. And then there's also been stuff going on with the Apple privacy changes, along with Google's now changing their privacy as well. So that's going to end up hurting Facebook even more. So yeah, they've had some bad news in the short term, Mike. And man, they need some good metaverse news or something to come out, because they need to definitely get a nice turnaround here soon. And their stock just continues to go lower. I wonder how low this one's going to go, Mike. Like, I'd love to buy Facebook right now, but with the way it's selling off, like, man, at this point, we might be at like 175 soon. And I'd hate to see him start to move towards 150. That would be insane.
Yeah. I feel like by zooming out, it kind of helps to, I guess you can say, reassure or some confidence in Facebook. Over the long term, once it loads, once Thinkorswim loads, we can see, yes, Facebook does have some, historically, it has had some insane dips, right? A couple examples of this would be in July of 2018. I actually remember this day. I believe, here, let me just check on a daily chart just to confirm. I believe it was like a giant gap down, and I also believe it was earnings. Let me just double check it, though. Yep, it was. Yep, exactly. I remember this day exactly. So July 25th of 2018, Facebook reported earnings. It was like one of the craziest gap downs at the time. Everyone was talking about it. And basically, that was just one example of, Facebook, like, yes, it goes through some of these horrible downtrends sometimes, but historically it has always recovered. And while Facebook, I know some people are like, they're, I don't know, some people are not a fan of buying the dip, which I can understand. In my opinion, Facebook is just a great company. They have awesome fundamentals. Regardless of like your opinion on like Facebook's like directors and Mark Zuckerberg and that stuff, Facebook the company is a cash cow. And then another thing, Tom, is they're really adapting into like VR and like virtual reality and the metaverse and all that stuff. I mean, they straight up changed their whole company name to Meta.
Yeah, to me, that's the biggest thing is that VR sector and everything. Like you mentioned, people don't like, their politics and their directors like Zuckerberg and stuff. And, I'm one of them. I'm someone who just doesn't like Facebook. I just don't like it anymore. I don't like the platform. I don't like how they show you certain information that they want you to see and how they are able to play stuff. Like they're able to play with people's feelings, and even like they'll show you certain ads after showing you, certain pictures and stuff because they know that you're more apt to buy it after getting your emotions riled up or whatever it is. But there's a lot of stuff that Facebook does like that people don't like. And, I think that that's pretty telling here over the past few months. We've been seeing things like DWAC or Truth Social starting to come onto the market. And while it hasn't even released yet, we've been seeing the stock go crazy, and the application like hasn't really even been letting the majority of people in it yet. So looking at it all, I feel like Facebook's going to be great for the future, Mike. And I don't know when the right time's going to be to grab it, because I feel like that Facebook is going through a big change right now. I feel like that their platform is getting a little bit outdated. People are starting to not like it as much. Their active user numbers have been going down. I know that on their last earnings report, they reported some negative growth on that. So, or at least they didn't meet expectations. So that's not good to see there. And I do feel like, Mike, that whenever Facebook or like whenever Truth Social and all these other companies started coming out, that's whenever we started seeing all these big social media companies fall. It's not just Facebook. It's also Twitter, it's Snapchat, and other things like that. And I really think that Facebook will do good for the long term. It's just in the short term, I think they're going through some pretty big changes. And I don't know how long it's going to take them to finally start to move back up here. But I will say, at this price point, I'm definitely looking to start averaging in on this one. I think it's going to be a great pickup for the long term. And keep in mind, I'm biased against Facebook, and I'm wanting to buy it because I just know their stock is so good. Like you said, Mike, those fundamentals are great, even though they might, lose out over the next couple quarters because Google and Apple changed their privacy changes. I still feel like that with them getting into VR and stuff, they're innovating and they're keeping themselves at the top of the game like they always have. They've been updating their platform year after year, and I'm really excited to see what they come out with as far as VR.
Yeah, for sure. So Bravo said, is this Facebook a buy? Only you can make that decision, but I'm definitely buying the dip. I have been buying shares. I've also been shorting some puts with it. No one knows the bottom, but at the end of the day, their fundamentals are grade A. They're in an industry that just grows more and more. And then just like Tom said, like they're kind of at like the top of the food chain, especially when it comes to like adapting and like VR and metaverse stuff and all that. So I think it'll be fine for the long term, and that's why I'm buying the dip. And then let's see. And then
long term, obviously short term, it can go anywhere, but longer term, I think we'll be okay.
Okay, yeah, because I said something and then like you were like lagged really badly, so I didn't know if the internet went down or something.
Yeah, I heard you say something, but yeah, my internet definitely cut out right there, big time. I think even my Thinkorswim chart started cutting out.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Let's see. We have Bravo saying, what's a good entry level on Facebook? I'm averaged at 220. I mean, I've just been slowly buying the dip. I mean, I don't have a specific like price target if that's what you're asking for. I've been buying for a couple days and weeks now. So ever since it really gapped down, I've been like shorting puts and buying the dip. But again, it's just dollar cost averaging. Facebook might be at 195 on Monday, or it might be at 180. No one knows. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty good deal, at least to me.
Yeah, and as it starts to fall down, like if you're in at 220 right now, you could start averaging in around where we're at and maybe bring your average closer down to 200. That might be a pretty good way to go. And, Facebook, like personally, I know that it's had lots of bounces off of this 150 support. I really hope that Facebook doesn't get back down to 150, but I'll tell you what, if it does, that's where I'm going to be a buyer. So hopefully we get down there and I can get it at even more of a discount. But I'm not sure we'll even get down there. That'll be a pretty steep drop. Although I will say I never expected us to be at 187. So, maybe it can continue, but we'll have to see. Like Mike said, Mike, you're shorting some puts on it. That'd be a really good way to go right now. I mean, the IV's high. We're at like 188. You could possibly like sell like some 170 puts. That would be a pretty low level to sell at. You could even get a little bit riskier and collect more premium at 180. I still feel like that would even be a good level to get in.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then we have Sean saying Qqq is free falling. Yes, it is. These China stocks are getting destroyed today. Qqq is getting absolutely destroyed. It's unfortunate to see. I have been seeing a lot of bullish options activity from the whales with this one over the past couple weeks and months. But yeah, it looks like these China stocks are definitely taking a beating. There was some news that came out from the Financial Times that said the SEC set the clock for delisting Chinese companies over U.S. audit demand. So, of course, any bad news between like U.S. and China, especially when it comes to like regulation, is pretty bad for these China stocks.
Yeah, it's definitely not good. I know we've been seeing bad China news for a while, Mike, and BABA just continued to go lower as that like Evergrande situation just got worse and worse over there in China. And then of course now we have possible delistment news and everything that just keeps piling on for these stocks. And man, I feel really bad, Mike, because I mean, like look at how BABA kept bouncing off support here at 110. It had like 4 or 5 touches here over the past like 6 months. And looking at it, I'm sure traders were buying this one up at the bottom. I know that Charlie Munger was buying in, Mike. I know he averaged into his position while it was down around 110 or 120. So he even did something down there that was lower. So even he's probably taking a big hit right now. So there's some big players right now getting hit with BABA. And I really hope that it ends up holding up. Maybe we'll see some reports come out, Mike, that some of these big players ended up selling out. That would definitely be pretty telling if we see that happen in a couple months.
Yep, true that. And then we have Iranical saying, I never imagined NIO on $16.80. Yeah, it's actually really crazy to think about, Tom. Just like a year or two ago, this stock was all the way at 67.
Wow, 67 down to $16. Like that is insane to see. We've even seen some even crazier drops on this I should say on this growth bubble getting popped, because man, all these growth stocks have similar moves like NEO does, and they just keep going lower. It's definitely not good with the China news, Mike, but yeah, that's telling. All the way down to $16 from 64. That is one heck of a drop to the downside there. And I'm not sure the next great level to buy NEO at, Mike. Like they're falling down to levels that they haven't been at since like a year or two ago. But looking at it, the levels that they were at, even they just weren't having too much like bounces there either. So like it's hard to find like some good support levels to look at, because like as they fall, like the next major level I'm seeing is like right around $16. But even with that, it's probably not going to hold up with this momentum and all the news coming in.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so I'm just doing another scan to see what we have moving. Still a lot of selling pressure from a lot of these stocks like BABA and stuff like that. It looks like even like Bitcoin and some of these other plays like Mara and Riot are coming down a bit. Let's see, Coinbase. Yeah, Coinbase is struggling a little bit. Tom, I just saw you looking at McDonald's. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, last night in yesterday's video, I talked about some of these value plays doing well, like McDonald's, Caterpillar, and stocks like that. And they are doing pretty well again today. I'll tell you, Caterpillar had a pretty nice move at open. Looks like it's having a nice run up. McDonald's is moving very well. I'm really happy with the way this one's moving. Looks like almost like a bit of like a bullish flag setup or something like that. But either way, I mean, they're setting up nicely. They're already up 1.7%, which is pretty big for a slow mover like McDonald's. So hopefully they keep moving. I think that'll make for some nice intraday movement. But yeah, the value plays are doing well. Even KO is starting to run up here this morning. They did get rejected at resistance around 58.50 a few times, but I will say, even though growth is starting to sell off in a major way, these safer plays are still doing well. Coca-Cola, Kraft, you could even say like MasterCard, Visa, they're doing a lot better today than they were yesterday. But yeah, I mean, like McDonald's and Caterpillar are really leading the way today.
Yeah, the value plays. There we go. Then we have Muscle saying, hello all. Costco has been a safe haven over the last few days. Only one of three green for me today. Let's see, Costco. COST. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the green. And Tom, it's kind of like another one of those value plays. Like, these value stocks like Costco, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's, Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, stuff like that. A lot of times they just kind of do their own thing with the market. Like, sometimes when all the growth stocks are green, the value stocks will be red, but the value stocks offer a lot more stability.
Yeah, they definitely do. You're not going to see the huge fluctuations out of these that you're seeing out of even the tech plays, Mike. Like, you're not even going to see Costco move like a Facebook. If you did, they'd have some major issues. But yeah, I mean, they're even holding up better than like some of the tech plays and stuff. So that's good to see. And yeah, it's definitely provides some stability. I will say, Mike, over the past 6 months, if I wouldn't have had some stability in my portfolio, I would have been pretty upset with all the way the growth stocks have been going down. So having some stability is definitely helpful. It sometimes it can really help you, especially during some steep downtrends like we've been seeing with, Zoom, DraftKings, and stuff like that. Having some of these safer plays always, it's never a bad idea, especially for the long term.
Yep, and then Muscle also said that he's holding his Donkey Kong, aka DraftKings, especially after the CEO comments. We'll see. Thanks, Mike and Tom. Yeah, I mean, DraftKings has been pretty brutal lately, like basically all other growth stocks. The comments from the DraftKings CEO was pretty awesome the other day. But yeah, I mean, it's been brutal. It's definitely a longer-term play. Short-term movement has been terrible. I'm trying to think if there was any other updates with this one, Tom. I mean, I know that like they just reported earnings like a couple weeks ago. We covered all of that on the main channel. I don't think there were really any like major updates like lately besides like the MLB resuming.
Yeah, the MLB did resume. That is some pretty big news, Mike. But I will say I don't know how much like baseball affects DraftKings. I will say it seems like like basketball and football is a little bit more popular, but I'm not sure like the numbers because baseball plays like 164 games each team does a year. So that's a lot of different possible bets there. And, I know that baseball is one of the bigger betting sports, so maybe that will be big for DraftKings, but hopefully it ends up helping them. I know, Mike, at the end of last year, or it might have been in January, I know that DraftKings was starting to legalize their sports betting over there in New York. And I thought that was some pretty big news for them, at least for the longer term. Of course, they continued down here for the past couple months, but I really feel like that them legalizing in New York is going to be big for them, Mike. Like, that's a pretty big state. Even if they're not the leader in New York, I feel like that's still going to be some nice revenue that DraftKings needs right now because, man, those poor fundamental numbers keep coming in just they're not getting worse and worse per se, but man, the EPS is definitely not good to see it in the negative like this. So I'd really be happy to see them report some better revenue numbers here over the next couple quarters.
Yep, no doubt about that. Let's see. I'm just looking through some of these other comments. We have Bravo saying, what do you guys think of the housing market? I mean, we are still have not corrected and houses are pretty expensive despite the fact that the market is falling. So just keep in mind that like housing prices are not really correlated to the stock market. Some other important things to keep in mind related to housing prices is that normally when rates rise, it I guess you can say lowers the price of housing because people can afford less house when they're paying for more interest. So normally, lower interest makes housing prices go up. Higher interest rates make housing prices go down. However, please keep in mind that we are seeing some insane inflation rates right now, and housing prices historically have been very good hedges against inflation. So, we're kind of just seeing like a mix between a bunch of different factors right now. I know that there has been a lot of shortages of a lot of, I guess you could just say, commodities, materials, and that has also increased the price of housing. So we can just see, Tom has it pulled up right here. This graph shows the median sales prices of houses sold in the United States, and for the most part, it's just very slow and steady. Really, the only significant downtrend was in like 2008, 2009, right around then. Besides that, it's been like a nice, slow and steady increase. So I'm not expecting a crash like 2008 and 2009. However, I think it's very possible that we can see a slowdown, and especially a significant slowdown relative to the growth that we've had over the past year or two, because the growth that we had in housing prices over the past year or two, Tom, it's unsustainable.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, look at the median prices. Like in Q2 of 2020, the median price was 322,000 just about. And at Q3 of 2021, we were sitting at 411,000. Like that's a pretty big increase out of housing prices alone. You might see a dip back down, but even over the past couple of weeks, Mike, I saw another report come out that said housing prices were the highest levels since, however many years ago. So it's still crazy to see that the prices are still staying up, and the rates are still pretty good right now, at least at the moment. So I know I have some friends in like the real estate industry and everything, and a lot of them have been just loving the business over the past couple of years. But I'm not sure, Mike. I could definitely see it starting to slow down, at least home purchases. Like you said, even in 2008, we did see a pretty significant pullback out of housing prices. But in the end, like if we look at how drastic 2008 was, and then we look at how little this fell, I mean, honestly, the housing prices didn't fall that much compared to how brutal, 2008 was, considering how big housing affected 2008. So it's crazy to see, Mike, that it only fell that little. I think that goes to show you how well housing prices do hold up. So in my opinion, housing will do pretty good for the long term. And the issue I have with housing, Mike, is a lot of the stocks for it. Like Redfin, of course, is a pretty good stock. Like obviously housing prices have been flying up, but Redfin has been flying down. I know a lot of people have been looking at stuff like and they've been looking at a lot of these different like REITs that have some crazy charts, and I just don't know. I'm not big enough into the housing sector to give a good enough like explanation of like these specific stocks, or like a good enough analysis of them. So I'm not gonna like say that these are good to buy right here, but I will say, Mike, like has been falling down over the past few months, and I don't know, like, give me your opinion. Like, do you think it'd be a decent buy down here for like maybe like Redfin or or something that deals in the housing market? Because I feel like it's a pretty good time to buy, but it's just I don't know too much about the housing market in general.
Yeah, I'm not huge into REITs, to be honest. So like, it's not really for me. I just feel like it's just a very mediocre investment. You have to be very careful in what these REITs own. For example, I think like maybe 5 years ago or something like that, some I forgot the exact ticker, but like one of these REITs were like loaded up on like exposure to malls in the US, and like at the same time Amazon was growing like crazy, and like malls were closing down and all that stuff, and I believe the REIT got destroyed. So all I'm trying to say is dig deep if you are buying REITs, because you want to know where that exposure is. Like, for example, like if you have one REIT that owns a bunch of malls over the U.S., and then you have another REIT that, owns multiple 200-unit multi-family apartment buildings located in amazing cities across the U.S., like, those are two completely different stories. So I would keep that in mind. I do own Redfin for the long term. It's just like a longer term play. It's nothing giant. But we had Muscle saying that he's a house flipper, and he said that the cost of materials are still insane. With new Russia sanctions, cost of plywood will rise again, along with vodka. Yeah, so that's another thing too, Tom. Like, the cost of materials has been just jaw-dropping as we all know. But then, like, even check out some of these commodities lately, whether you're looking at oil, soybeans, corn, wheat, uranium, fertilizer with potash stocks, like gold and silver, like whatever commodity you look at, there's a really good chance it's higher right now than it was a couple weeks or a couple months ago. So it's like, it's a complex situation, but personally, I'm not expecting like a crash like we saw in 2008 or 2009, but I can definitely see, a slowdown. But still, it's like at that point in time, it's like no one can time that. So it's kind of like the same thing with like looking at the S&P 500. It's like sometimes it's just better to, just like, I know in the S&P 500 or with stocks, you can slowly buy in over time, where with houses, you can't do that. So, like, I just feel like it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, time in the market beats timing the market. Because, Tom, can you go back to that real estate prices chart really quickly? I just want to demonstrate something. So we can see, like, Tom, like, let's say you looked at, like, 2015, like, maybe, like, the middle of 2015, something like that. Yeah, like, right there, that's totally fine. I'm sure some people back in 2015 said, oh, wow, look at the giant increase in prices from 2015, or from, like, 2012 to 2015. And they said, I'm just going to wait for the next crash. And then, like, here we are 7 years later, and prices are just that much higher. So, like, the point is, like, sometimes it's just better to just to do it, to just have skin in the game, because historically, like, prices rise very consistently, especially housing prices, and just looking at the chart, it's unlikely to actually time a full housing crash.
Yeah, and if you get the right type of loan, even if you get like let's say you decide to like maybe invest into some real estate, like let's say you get the right type of loan, you might be able to even just like rent out the house. I know a lot of first-time home buyers can't do this, but obviously, like, if you're investing in housing, you can always just then rent it out. And even if the market does pull back a little bit, like 2008, you're still getting that renter's income as long as you have some good renters in there. So in the end, I mean, you should hold up pretty well as long as you're doing things right, and then just hold it for the long term. It should do pretty well. Mike, I've seen over the past couple of years some house flippers have made some crazy money over with especially some of the higher priced properties, like for example, like properties in like expensive parts of cities like St. Louis and Chicago and LA and different places like that. It's been insane. Like, some of these houses that were costing like $1 million are now worth like 1.5 million, almost 2 million in some cases. So it's like, man, I've seen some insane price growth lately, and you can always protect yourself if you have some good renters in there too.
Yep. Yeah, and then Sam said, here in Arizona, there's a housing shortage. It's hard to buy a home because a home gets multiple offers. Yep. Yeah, it's been like that way for, the past year especially. The whole market has just been crazy. So, good info.
My mom actually just sold a house, Mike, and she had so many buyers come in that they actually bidded it up like 25 grand over her asking price. And it's like, I've been seeing that happen all over the place. So that's it's pretty crazy to see how many people are trying to buy houses right now. And it seems like whenever rates are low, just everybody flocks into the housing market.
Yeah, no doubt. And then let's see. So we have Sean saying, I have a Zoom call debit spread. It is for the March 18th expiration, and it is the 109 and 111 spread. So let's take a look at this one. So the good thing is you have a spread because the IV is high. The expiration's next week, which is a little bit risky. Now the good thing with Zoom is that while the IV is high, it's high for a reason. As you can say with most other stocks, it's because the market is expecting a lot of volatility very soon, or over the short-term future. So Zoom right now is at $100. This is a pretty big support level. And you have the 109 spread, which, while it is decently far out of the money, it's really not that far out of the money. I mean, Tom, today alone, Zoom moved $3.50. So As long as it goes back above 109 by next week, you'll be good. And in terms of like how to answer your question, how do I play it from here? It really depends on your sentiment on Zoom. Like if you think Zoom's just going to keep on tanking down, then you would just want to take your losses and move on. But again, Zoom is bouncing off of a pretty significant support level right at 100. So I think it's fine as long as you're not over leveraged in it. Of course, it's risky, and if we're being very objective, it has a low probability of expiring in the money. But you can say that about any option that is out of the money, especially if it expires next week. So with everything being said, it's good that you have a spread. It fights time decay a little bit. It's good that you're not excessively far out of the money. And it's also really good that Zoom is bouncing off of a very significant support level. So just to recap, if you don't think Zoom is going to bounce, you'd want to cut your losses now. If not, you have a couple days next week for it to pop. And then Tom, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I was, I guess. But I'm actually really looking for Zoom to fly off that $100 support, Mike. I think that's going to be pretty big. Like you kept saying, $100 is a big level psychologically, and then just overall, people have probably been eyeing up $100 on Zoom for a while as it's been going down, especially this week. So maybe we'll start to see a nice pop. If we do, it might even make for some good day trades here. And I'm really going to be eyeing it up because, I know Zoom just keeps going lower and lower, Mike. And I'm definitely going to be looking at some longer term positions here for sure. I mean, we've been eyeing it up ever since $200 and we're all the way down to 100 now. So definitely a good time to start to look at averaging in my opinion. And like you mentioned, Mike, I know we say this all the time, but Zoom's fundamentals are so much better than these other growth stocks that we see that it just blows my mind that they just continue to go lower day after day. And, we've even been seeing some of the other growth stocks hold up a little bit better, like Corsair. I know that they're not doing great, but, at least they're not running down to new lows. But, I know that Zoom just keeps doing that, which is just, it's blowing my mind considering how good the numbers have been.
Yeah. Yeah, Zoom, like every single quarter, just posts record revenue every single time. And a lot of, actually, I think for the past 3 or 4 quarters, they've been beating their analyst expectations in a lot of different ways. But the stock just keeps on falling, which it sucks. But eventually the stock will, it will turn around. It's just a matter of when. Of course, if we were looking at Zoom at 570, then yes, obviously it's overvalued. But, I've been saying this for a little while now. I think Zoom's a great play to own. And a lot of people were like, oh, once the pandemic ends, Zoom's going to lose all their revenue. But it's like every single quarter for the past, I think every single quarter, it's been posting new record revenue. Let me just double check this data really quickly in the dashboard. It's loading up right now, but just give me 1 second. It's loading up. So Zoom's revenue by quarter. Let's see. Yeah, literally, it has done nothing but go straight up. Literally, since the latest data we have goes from 2020, what appears to be the second quarter, it just increases every single quarter, and the stock just keeps on falling.
Yeah, that's insane to see to see how low they go and how good their numbers have been coming in at. And I'll tell you what, they are getting that little bit of a bounce there off $100. So maybe we'll start to see a nice uptrend today. It would definitely make for some good intraday movement as well as even maybe a good support being formed here, Mike. If we have a good support forming around 100, I think that would be amazing for Zoom. And like we said, for the long term, we really like it. I think it'll be a really good thing to pick up. And even though they've been going down, just keep in mind all growth stocks have generally been going down too. So we can't 100% blame Zoom. Even if we look at some of these growth plays that people love, Mike, some people who hate on Zoom probably like AMC, but look at AMC. It's falling all the way down below $15 now. And even they're going to be running down lower. So I'm not saying Zoom's an AMC by any means, but I'm just showing showing how some traders might, hate on Zoom, but then they might want to buy AMC or buy a Lucid or buy a Rivian or something like that. But just look at those fundamentals, guys, because it's so telling whenever you look at Rivian's fundamentals compared to Zoom. There's just no comparison even.
Alrighty. Yeah, so I think that's everything. Another thing with Zoom is that they are doing that $1 billion share buyback, which is good. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty good for the long term, especially at this level. But, Tom, do you have any last-minute plays before we close the stream?
Yeah, these China plays just keep moving to the downside. LI is almost down 10% now. It just continued to fall down all day as we were talking, Mike. So not good there. Stocks to the upside. Seems like only the safer ones are moving. We have McDonald's moving. Boeing ended up not really doing anything today, just staying still. Pfizer's kind of running up, so maybe that could be a play today at some point if you catch the right momentum on it. But what I'm getting down to is that the safer moving, the safer, slower moving value plays are doing well today. Whether it's McDonald's, Caterpillar, Coca-Cola, stocks like that, even like Bank of America is in the green. They might be extending back up here. So, definitely keep these value plays on your radar. I think they'll probably be the stocks to play today. I'm also, Mike, I know we just talked about it, but I'm still keeping Zoom on my radar all day today. If we continue to see it move well off 100, I might look at making a play on this one.
All right, there we go. And then, Tom, one last thing. We have Iranical asking for some support on QQQ. What do you have?
Yeah, the QQQ, it's falling down this morning. We're actually approaching those pre-market lows. Let's see. Yeah, I do see some pretty big support there, right around that pre-market low. The pre-market low today was right around 328.50. So I guess you could eye up 328.50 as a good support. I'm also seeing some support right around 329, and we did have a bounce here right around 329 where we're sitting. So that could be a good support, as well as 328.50 below that. So definitely be careful. I will say there's there's been lots of bounces within this like $2 range between 327 and 329. So eye up that area. Like I said, lots of bounces there. It's hard to give an exact level because it's, look, right here it bounced at 329. Down here it bounced at 327. Right here it bounced at like 328.50. So, it's honestly been bouncing all over the place. So with this one, Mike, keep in mind it's an indice. It's going to move more of like with the overall sector, as in tech. So like if we see, Apple and everything start to tank down, it's probably just going to blow right through these supports. So keep that in mind.
All right. And then one more question from Johnny saying thoughts on Roblox shares for the long term. It's at its lowest point in the last 3 years. I think it's pretty good at this level. And yeah, I do like it at this level. We have a couple videos dedicated to Roblox specifically on the main channel, so feel free to check those out. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching. I just want to personally thank all of you before we close out. Thank you so much, Hunter, George, Jamie, Michael, DCM, Vicky, J-Deep, Mike, Hurt, Sean, Bravo, and let's see, Muscle, Iranical, Sam, Carter, Johnny, Head, and Raymond. I think that's everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining. Hopefully the market pops up to end the day, and have a great weekend.